Hello, everybody.
Hi, everybody. So today we're here to do our wrap up of movies and books that we read and one play that we went to see during the second part of February and in the past couple of weeks. So to begin, I have a few uh, book reviews to talk about for my Gilmore Girls and Friends TBR. The first one was like Water for Chocolate. This book is actually a crossover with my books I read in school. Does my opinion change TBR? So I read this book in 11th grade World Lit World Studies class. This is a Mexican retelling of the Cinderella fairy tale. And I gave it 4.5 stars, and we made the
It's called chorizo.
chorizo recipe, and we gave it 7 out of 10.
Now, chorizos, in case you don't know, are a Mexican variety of sausages, and sometimes they're a little bit spicier than others. But the recipe for just heating them up is just the same. They're usually pre-cooked things, so it doesn't take a lot of effort whether you cook it on the stovetop or the oven. And if you start playing around with that and eating sausages, then I think you'll see what I mean.
The next book that was on the Gilmore Girls and Friends TBR that has a recipe in it that we did not end up having the chance to make this month was um, the Honest Pie recipe, but I wanted to talk about the book anyway. This book, it was on my TBR because it represents Suki's character, and it's basically about the romance of a baker and another baker that she falls in love with. Actually, no. I think I'm just going to read the description. Sid, no pronouns, please, has always dealt with being hard to talk to about things by baking. Being dumped is no different, except now Sid is working in the kitchen of the Proud Muffin, a queer bakery in community space in Austin. Everyone who eats Sid's breakup brownies breaks up. Even Vin and Alec, who own a Proud Muffin, and their breakup might take the bakery down with it. Being dumped is one thing, causing ripples of queer heartbreak is another. But the Proud Muffin's cute bike delivery person, Harley, he or they check the pronoun pin on the messenger bag, is the first person to really believe in Sid's magical baking. And not to mention the first person that sees Sid as an agender cupcake. And together, Sid and Harley are going to fix the romantic disasters caused by these brownies, one recipe at a time. So I gave this book 4.5 stars and this book 4 stars. Um, the next book reviews I wanted to talk about are the January and February buddy reads that I did with my best friend Sonia in New Hampshire. In January, we read Perfect Match by Jodi Picoult. Some other books that I have read by Jodi Picoult in the past include My Sister's Keeper, 19 Minutes, and Salem Falls. Um, and I really enjoyed this book. The plot was really engaging, unlike the plot of 19 Minutes, which was actually sad and depressing. So I forced myself to get through that book and ended up giving it 3 stars. Um, Perfect Match got 4.5 stars. I love Nina's character development throughout the story, and agree with Sonia that Patrick Ducharme is really dedicated to his job. For Black History Month last month, we read Althea by Sally H. Jacobs. This is a memoir of a tennis player from the 1950s and 1960s named Althea Jacobs and how she came to prominence in the game of tennis. What was really interesting about this book is the more popular tennis player of that time was Arthur Ashe, and he's the one I know more about. So it was interesting to learn about this tennis player in her career. Um,
And what did you rate that?
4.5 stars.
And right now, Janine is basically reading a biography based on Billie Jean King, another legend of tennis.
I just started that book tonight, and I'm on chapter 7. The next thing that we wanted to talk about is the movie we watched with Philosophy Club a couple weeks ago. It's called Inception. It stars Leonardo DiCaprio and Elliot Page, who at that time was named Ellen Page. Um, Inception came out in 2010, and I have seen many movies with Leonardo DiCaprio in it. This movie is not one of my favorites. Um, the
Be-
first, oh,
yeah, because the confusing part about this movie is it feels like some lots of action and shooting going on when it feels like it's a dream within a dream. And at the same time we were in the philosophy club discussing the film, we were discussing that topic of what dreams really do mean in all of us. And sometimes even in our dreams it goes within another, and then they all get unpredictable and you can't really see what's going to be happening.
So one thing we talked about when we had the discussion about the movie is the discussion of the ambiguous ending and the comparison of this ambiguous ending and the ambiguous ending in A Walk to Remember. The reason, what makes the ending of A Walk to Remember so ambiguous, and we're sorry to spoil the ending if you haven't seen the movie, but we're assuming that by now most of you have seen the movie. This is my second time rewatching it since it originally came out in 2002. Um, the ambiguous ending is that you don't know when Jamie actually passes away and if she gets to have kids with Landon. In an alternate universe, I like to think that she goes into remission for a little bit longer to enjoy a little bit more time with her family before she dies, but clearly that is not what happens. The ambiguous ending, and again, sorry to spoil the ending in case you have not seen Inception before, but um basically the top is still spinning at the end of the movie, so that way you don't know if Cobb is awake or still dreaming, and if he actually gets reunited with his family. Um, is there a time and space continuum when we dream?
Well, when we dream, usually it's there's no telling when time it is at night or when we are going to wake up. So if we are still in deep sleep, then it just continues on, and it can only break with this our pop when our minds go blank when we're ready to almost wake up, or if we have to go to the bathroom in the middle of the night. Sometimes what we have in our dream gives us that signal of what happens in our body.
Do you think there is um a philosophy to dreams and what we dream about?
Well, my philosophy would be is they're really unpredictable unless you are really thinking about certain things in your mind day after day. Like, for instance, Jeannie and I are talking about when the next time we can go away for our vacation is. But occasionally, when I have dreams like that, it sometimes takes me back to if I feel a little anxious, if I've had that general anxiety disorder around people. And then it just turns out to be a waste until near the very end.
Um, how do you think the time and space continuum when we dream relates to the out of body experiences that Matthew Perry's character in Numb deals with?
Well, basically, Janine in Numb. First of all, can you tell me what happened again? I forgot what happened in Numb.
The main character, who is played by Matthew Perry, has out of body experiences to help him cope with his anxiety, basically. And I'm asking how that connects to dreaming.
Sometimes when we do dream, our even then we are not in the same body like we are when we are awake.
Mm-hmm.
And I know sometimes when I'm dreaming, I have those times when I have longer hair or kind of a different body, or I feel sick in a different way.
So in Matthew Perry's character deals with his anxiety, by having the out of body experiences. How do your coping mechanisms differ than his?
The way I cope with out of body is I just try to think to myself what's causing it for a little bit before I actually get to the answer. Then I somehow try to erase that and just try to start over again and just try to feel as good as I could possibly be.
I've never had out of body experiences before, but how I cope with anxieties by taking walks outside or writing.
Yeah, we like to take walks outside when we can.
Um, the final question is um, how does depersonalization and oh, we just talked about that. Okay, so the next thing we're going to talk about is The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe,
Hmm.
which is the play that we saw last Sunday at Portland Players. Let me.
And during the same weekend, I got a chance to read the original book because Jean borrowed a copy of that book from the Boys and Girls Club library where she volunteers. And then we both went and watched the Disney film on Disney Plus the day before we actually went to the Portland Players and ushered.
So the differences that we notice is in the play there is no professor or maid. The costumes were beautifully designed in this production by Rebecca Copeland. Um, our favorite characters were Lucy, who was played by Lennon Kirby, Aslan, who was played by Tom Halsalter,
And I like Susan, played by Eddie Wood.
and the White Witch, who was played by Becca Gracie. Excuse me. I'm sorry. The CGI components of the film were a little off-putting, much like in Fantastic Mr. Fox.
There are some who agree that when they see the CGI of the different animals in films like The Wine Witch and the Wardrobe, it does feel a little scary to the viewer because it's almost like realistic. But the only difference I found that was missing in the film version compared to the play and the book, there was no Turkish delight. And Turkish delight is these soft jelly candies that sometimes we eat on holidays like Easter or Passover or Christmas. So they're very good.
um, so the next two TV episodes we wanted to talk about were Kim Possible, the first episode of season one, and the sixth episode of season one, Crush and Bueno Nacho. Um, in the first episode, Kim is nervous about asking her crush Josh to the dance, and Ron and her get stuck in the middle of a battle to save the world from Shigo and Dr. Draken's robots.
Now, that topic in that episode, it was actually the first aired when it was first on the September 2001 edition of One Disney Saturday Morning. But it didn't get into Disney Channel on its first block until June 7th, 2002, 5 days after I graduated from high school. But what that topic really talks about is a big example that many of us in high school may have gone through at one stage or another is their absolute crush on either a girl with a boy or a boy with a girl. And it's just a typical kind of nervous feeling sometimes that we get. Sometimes we feel we have to say the right thing at the right time. But at the very end, after the duo of Team Stop Possible, Kim and Ron, and their Nico Romance Rufus defeat Shigo and Dr. Draken with a robot, then Kim gets her chance and she dances with Josh, her crush, at the end of the episode.
have you ever had anxiety to ask someone to your school dance? I did.
Can you tell me about it, Gene?
I had a crush on a lot of guys in my school, and I was always nervous to ask them out because I was afraid of being rejected. Because I asked one guy out and he rejected me, and I figured the same thing would happen again. So that's why I never asked anybody else out.
Well, I know when I had the prom season, I did have success with my best friend in my junior year. But come senior year, I tried again with several other girls, and I was unsuccessful. So I decided I wasn't going to go to that one right before my graduation. So I didn't ask a whole lot. It wasn't until I got to college where I experienced when life with hanging out with more friends. Now, the Bueno Nacho episode, which was number 6 in the list of episodes that aired on Disney Channel, but it was really the first kind of production episode that the guys at Disney Channel Animation produced for the show. This is where Kim had a dream with getting a present that she really wanted, and that is a lovely green winter jacket. But due to the fact that she had to earn money to get it for herself with help from her parents, that's when she and Ron get the job at Bueno Nacho. Eventually, it works at the very end, but it is the first instance in any episode where she gets her first crack at saving the world from those same villains, Shigo, Dr. Draken. So it was a good beginning, nonetheless, but it didn't air in that order on Disney Channel. So, again, here's the question that I have for you all. If you wanted something that is within your dreams, whether it be a piece of clothing or a bicycle or maybe even a new cell phone, did your parents ask you to do something as simple maybe as chores around the house, maybe help your neighbors or babysit, or maybe work a part-time job? Because I remember when I started dating Janine, it was her sister Kristen Leffler's sophomore year in high school, and she was working part-time after school at this ice cream place called Brewster's, which was on Daniel Webster Highway in the corner of Amherst and Nashua, New Hampshire.
Um, so we have two more recipe reviews to talk about today. The first one was one we made a couple of weeks ago from the Noom cookbook. It's a Korean stir fry dish called japchae. And this goes along with the Friends and Gilmore Girls TBR and the recent reread that I did of Crying in H Mart by Michelle Stauner, which will be reviewed in the next episode of the From Manhattan to Stars Hollow TBR podcast, which will be out on June 1st, and episode 1 will be out on Friday on Kathleen's YouTube channel, and I will share the link to that on my community tab, so please be sure to check it out. So we highly recommend this vegetarian dish. Green vegetables and carrots make it really healthy. The book reviews for the books of Fitz Lane character. Everybody in this room will someday be dead by Emily Austen and Last Night at the Telegraph Club by Melinda Lowe. Both of these books got 4.5-star ratings. What I like the best about um everyone in this room will one day be dead is Emily Austen's dry sense of humor, and it definitely fits Lane's character spot on. And the next book I read that fits Lane's character is Last Night at the Telegraph Club, which is set during the Red Scare in the 1950s and 1960s during, I think it was the Korean War, and it's an LGBTQ romance. And the thing that I like the best about this book is that it highlights LGBTQ romance at a time when it was kind of taboo, which is 1950s, 1960s, same time as The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid. The next recipe that we wanted to talk about was the quiche from the Friends cookbook. You can take this away.
Now, it's very simple to make a dish like quiche because all you just need to do is get some eggs and follow with a little bit of stirring cream and some milk and maybe a couple of vegetables to add in a nice healthy side and get your dose of them if it's not in the recipe itself. Like for instance, I use a little spinach and mushroom and even purple potatoes when I made two of them a couple weeks ago. I had one with Janine and I, and then I made another one for my Universalist Unitarian Church in Portland for my choir, which when we had our retreat that Saturday. So it was a very good idea, and Gene and I liked it. I think we gave that 8 stars out of 10.
And as far as the episode of Friends that this is from, there are two plots in this episode. The first one is when Monica is catering a luncheon for her mom and her friends, and she loses her fake blue fingernail in the quiche. That's why the dish in the cookbook is called Blue Fingernail in the Quiche. And Judy Geller redeems herself in this episode, but then she goes back to being totally mean to Monica for the rest of the time. She basically admits to Monica that she's a bitch, which shows her character for a brief moment. The second the second plot in this episode oops focuses on Chandler dating Rachel's boss Joanna and them having a really bad breakup. So what ends up happening is Joanna does not take well to the news of the breakup, so she um has sex with Chandler in her office and handcuffs him to her desk chair. Rachel comes in because she's looking for the holiday bonus check from her drawer, from the from Joanna's drawer, and she sees Chandler naked in his bathrobe, handcuffed to the chair. She unlocks him, and then Chandler tries to get free, but instead he ends up getting handcuffed to the filing cabinet. And there is a blooper from this episode where Matthew Perry hits himself in the head with the filing cabinet, and Jennifer Aniston can't exactly contain her laughter because she thinks it's funny. So I gave this episode Um. Oh, what did I give this episode? I think I gave it 7 out of 10 stars on IMDb, but I don't exactly remember. Um. The next thing that we wanted to talk about is iCarly.
And we saw that pilot episode for the first time, both of us, and we got our first look at Miranda Cosgrove as Carly and also Sam, played by who? Oh, Jeanette McCarthy.
Jeanette McCurdy.
McCurdy, right.
So we are going to be reading I'm Glad My Mom Died after we finish listening to the Mr. Rogers memoir on audiobook. And uh, from my first experience watching the episode of iCarly, that's the premiere episode. I enjoy getting to know all these characters and can't wait to review future episodes in future videos. The next TV show we wanted to wrap up our discussion of is Joey, the Friends spinoff, which was not very well liked. I would have to say that I wish that the directors. So, this was directed by the same directors of Friends, David Crane. I don't think Marta Kaufman or Kevin Bright worked with him, but Scott Silveri did, and so did Shauna Mian Gorham or whatever her name was. So, this show focuses on Joey's acting career. He moves out to California to go live with his sister and his nephew. His sister's name is Gina, and Gina does not appear in Friends, so I found out to be a little bit misleading and confusing. Um, the episode we recently watched actually focuses on their youngest sister, Mary Teresa, coming to visit. another thing that I found confusing about the Joey spinoff is Joey has another sister named Dina, who is played by the same actress who played Gia, Stephanie Tanner's friend from Full House. And she appears in one episode because she gets pregnant, and she she talks to Rachel to get the confidence to go talk to her brother that she's pregnant. And Joey basically says, "You don't get married for funny, you laugh." So Dina only appears in that one episode of Friends, and when I first heard that Joey was coming out with a spin-off, I thought that that would be the sister that he was moving in with in California, but she never shows up. So that's one gripe I have with this show. The other gripe I have is that most of the plots of the episodes are basically rehashed episodes from Friends about Joey's acting career not being very successful, except for the Deep Powder show that's directed by Lucy Liu from Charlie's Angels. And the only episodes that we liked of Joey were Joey, the pilot episode, Joey and the book club, and Joey in the premiere, which is the episode of the premiere about the premiere of Deep Powder.
Mm-hmm.
The next thing we wanted to talk about are two movies we recently watched. The first one is 13 Going on 30 with Jennifer Garner and Mark Ruffalo. This movie came out in 2004 when I was a senior in high school. And my sister made a comment the other day that she was 13 when this movie came out, and she remembers being able to relate to Jen Rink's character being a insecure teenager at that time. Um,
And also, she was played by a real 13-year-old named Krista Brown. Before we got to see our Jennifer Garner near her real age of 30 in this movie. But what it just basically is after she finds out about a dream home made to look like Barbie from one boy that she had a crush on, then when she's in the closet, some dust sprinkles on, and then she's magically transported to what her life is at 30.
she
Although she doesn't really.
she wishes to be 30, flirty, and thriving, but I would not say she necessarily got her wish, which makes it to be a little bit disappointing. And I didn't really like the fact how Lily went behind her back and scammed her and Maddie.
Mhm.
The
So,
next
so realize is that sometimes when we get old, it's not them apples like we think it is.
the next movie that we watched is one we just finished watching, and we wanted to talk about it while our opinions of it were fresh in our head. This is a Miyazaki film that was originally released in 1987 or 1989 and was re-released in 2000. It's called Kiki's Delivery Service, and the voice actors in it are
Kirsten Dunst.
Kirsten Dunst from um,
She's from
Bring It On.
Bring It On, right? And she's also Mary Jane in the Spider-Man
Spider
movie.
Man, right? And then Jeannie Garofalo, who was in He's Just Not That Into You. Phil Hartman, who I don't. If you know what show Phil Hartman was in, leave it in the comments because we don't know. And then Debbie Reynolds, who died a couple of years ago and was the mother of Carrie Fisher from Star Wars. She was in the movie Singing in the Rain.
Now, this story really talks about the life of this 13-year-old. Yes, it's another 13-year-old. And she feels like that she's made it into her next stage of being a witch in training. So when she finds out that there's a moon out and she wants to go out on her own, she definitely has quite a ride on her broom. And then when she and her cat got, what's his name? Gigi?
Gigi, yeah.
Gigi end up on a train, which takes them to a coastal town, which to us looked like a little bit like San Francisco because it was a Bay Area and it had cable cars.
Mm-hmm.
So she ends up at first unsure, but then when she finds out how she could deliver back a pacifier to a baby, that's when she gets her breakthrough, and even she gets found to be a good worker to deliver all kinds of different services. But then she has a little bit of a spell broken in the middle with a rainstorm and getting sick. Then eventually she finds the guy who was just being annoying to her at first, kind of being a nice, trying to be a nice help, and then she ends up saving him at the very end from a catastrophe.
Well, we shouldn't spoil the ending in case other people want to see it. So we gave this movie 7 out of 10 stars on IMDb, and we heard about it through a YouTube video where the person who is the YouTube channel host, Jenny, her story is two used stories. The link to the video that she posted will be in the description where she talks about this movie. She paired this movie up with this book, which was a reread for me on the From Manhattan to Stars Hollow TBR. I reviewed it in my one of my most recent reading updates, and I this was a reread from last year, which I gave 5 stars to. And it also pairs well with this book because it's about magical food and a magical bakery. So, our next video will be out at the beginning of April. Our next episode of the podcast with Kathleen will be out on June 2nd. Have a great month, you guys. We will see you on April 13th.
Bye, everyone.